at its core, it's about arts and human expression, but also within nature. So it's kind of a pick your own adventure sort of scenario where it gives you all of these, it highlights these beautiful ingredients, both of the natural and the man-made world, and it allows people to sort of feel that art and explore within that. So, even where Nirox would have started out with this idea of the arts, which can be a bit grandiose and all of that thing, but like it's always kind of guided its own way from that point.
Welcome to Gauteng Life, the platform where we share, propagate, and converse about everything the visitor economy in the Golden Province of Gauteng. My name is Baba Kgaogane Dibi, your champion host. As we always do, we bring you taste makers, change agents, and taste makers, the ones that continue to propel this Golden Province to greater heights, the ones that are shining beyond the province, are shining in South Africa, are shining in the African continent. And we bring them live here and direct in studio to converse and interact with us on how we propel our Golden Province and its economy forward. Our guest for this segment is no different. A good friend of mine, an impresario, co-founder of Nirox Sculpture Park, Lloyd Anthony Smith. My brother, welcome to Gauteng Life.
Baba, thank you so much for having me. What a pleasure to be here in the studio.
Yes, how does it feel, you being, out of that gem of a space, the scenic beauty, the art community, and now you are right here in the bustling city, right in the city center.
Yeah, quite a drive. Interesting dichotomy of worlds, but time to put on some long pants and a jacket and see the other side. It's great, I guess that dichotomy is something that Johannesburg has always had, the natural beauty and the man-made. So grateful to be here. Thank you.
So what is an impresario?
An impresario.
Impresario.
Basically, it's a curator, a director of programming. So I've been very fortunate to be the resident impresario at Nirox Sculpture Park for 12 years now. Mm-hmm. And I've been lucky enough to host all kinds of different genres, as you would have seen there at Nirox. You know, we host multiple concerts in a year, and anything from blues, jazz, popular music, traditional music, classical music, poetry. We just get to span all the genres, which is really beautiful.
Absolutely. So before getting into that, you know, curation work, for somebody who were watching us, listening to us, wants to know, you know, who's Lloyd? So who's Lloyd beyond the barefoot walking in Nirox and doing great and phenomenal stuff?
So I'm West Rand born and bred, not far from here.
Yeah. So you're a Westie.
Yeah. From the west side. And I've always just had an affinity for arts, music, culture, and creativity in general.
Yeah.
While I was studying and not really knowing what I wanted to do, I got, you know, involved in some projects and ended up working on these large-scale productions in the Seychelles, where a Joburg-based company would do these big events for private clients and his guests, and we would go 4, 5, 6 times a year and just do these crazy events with all kinds of musicians and magicians and contortionists and fire dancers. And then after that spell, the music was always my passion. So I started my own little concert. Actually, I did my very first own festival at Shafpozi.
Okay.
Like a kind of reggae style festival, but with a bit of opera in it.
Okay. Giving it the Lloyd's flavor.
Yeah, just you know, getting to work with artists that I'd met, friends of mine, friends of friends, and you know, just being introduced to all these different kinds of players and styles and genres. So to put something together of my own, and then I did. I hosted another festival. I don't know if you know Santon Central Park.
Yes.
At the end of where Grayston reaches Santon Drive. I started doing, it was old Blackberry Park. I think Blackberry sponsored them for a while.
Yes.
So I started doing concerts there. Also just my own.
And it closed down later on. They were doing renovation. In Innas Free Park now, something like that.
No, so I think Innas Free is even a different
right
one.
at a corner.
Yeah.
Yes.
But amazing space at the time, and it was amazing to be able to set up my own concert there, and you know, curate everything from the musicians through to the food vendors, organize supplies, infrastructure, that stuff. And from there, I got a random phone call one day, and it was the folks at Nirox, and they were like, "Hey, we've got a venue here in the Cradle of Humankind," and I was like, "Where's that?"
Yeah.
I didn't even know it existed.
Even if you were coming from the West End.
I know, right? It's pretty unbelievable.
Yeah.
But that's pretty much what got me to that particular juncture.
Then the move to there, to this magnificent space. You know, a little brief history. I mean, of the origin of Nirox. I mean, people now see this magnificent place. You know, they don't know, you know, the work that was put behind it, and the trials and tribulations, you know, especially operating in a UNESCO-governed space, you know, a World Heritage Site. But ultimately, I still need to be convinced otherwise that there is any other beautiful sculpture park on the African continent, you know, than Nirox. But the whole origin, you know, the history and the work in setting up that, and your role and influence in there, noting, you know, your history, having seen a glimpse of Seychelles, having, you know, hosted international acts, and being the son of the soil also. That combination, you know, are you able to take us through, you know, those early moments?
Yeah, with pleasure. So as I mentioned, I was invited to the space, got directions. On my drive out there, I'm now suddenly surrounded, like out the hustle and bustle, out, you know, the boundaries of suburbia, and you're like, where am I? Because it's just farmlands, grasslands, there's no intersections, robots, billboards, and I thought I was lost. I was like, geez, I've obviously turned the wrong way, but meanwhile, I was back at the source, back in the cradle of humankind. So this was 12 years ago, 13 years ago, but Nirox had been already operational. It's been around for about 2 decades now.
Yeah.
And but the thing is, it was still such a kind of hidden little gem. You know, because it's a non-profit and it's an art foundation.
Yeah.
And it exists purely to foster the arts. You know, they were doing that by way of an artist residency where they had a cottage and 2 rooms where local and international artists would be able to come and stay there and visit and have space just to create. And then the sculpture park itself, 30 hectares of just, I mean, you've seen it, just
amazing.
Landscaped beauty. But because they're a non-profit, because they're an art foundation, they also have never marketed themselves. It's never ever been a thing of like, they've always been very happy just, you know, for an organic sort of growth, connection with artists and with audiences. So arriving there at my first meeting, and while I'm sitting there chatting to the director, Benji, just, you know, like a zebra just walked past us. I was like, this place is unbelievable. Like, what am I even looking at right now? And he had an idea at that stage for a music concert that he wanted to host, and you know, it was this sort of retro thing of covering impactful songs that made a difference in the world in the 60s and 70s. You know. Sort of a lot of like kind of counter-revolution, you know, like pro-love kind of flower power, if you will, kind of music and musicians. So we put that one together, and we had an amazing turnout and an audience response. So we were like, okay, what's next? And then it's like, okay, I got some other ideas. Let's try these different themes. So we've done like 60, 70 of those different concerts now in that time frame.
And just been phenomenal growth. How has it been, you know, able to leverage, you know, the location, especially in the World Heritage Site, UNESCO space? I guess that comes with its own, you know, opportunities and disadvantages. There's certain things you can't do. You had to equally structure and curate your musical experience, especially. You have to look at your brand partnerships that are there. You know, you can't all of a sudden, you know, despite the legislation, have a cigarette brand that comes and ban down everything, you know, excuse the pun. But I guess there are certain parameters that you need to operate within, but that in itself, it being a World Heritage Site, comes with a prestige of actually being a space that no longer belongs to South Africa or the continent. It actually belongs to the people of the world. So by extension, that becomes the window of your curated musical food experience, you know, to the world.
Definitely, I think there's a responsibility that comes with that location, and as you said, it is kind of a prestige, even if it's like almost I don't know if it's an accidental, and you can go as far down that rabbit hole as you like. But at the end of the day, you know,
like maybe the explosion and everything that created the fossils might have been accidental.
So or not, or maybe it's perfectly lining up with the grand plan. To get us here at this exact moment. But I think, you know, because it started out just sort of, you know, in earnest, as about the arts, and that space specifically, as you've seen, it's highly curated and looked after. You know, everything is done kind of in sympathy with nature, which is where the styles of music often are selected, and the kinds of artists that are invited are, you know, kind of fit that mold. And in setting those kind of boundaries and limitations in artistic terms, that kind of opens up more possibilities in a way. You know, as you said, it's not a space for like fast moving consumer goods kind of thing. It's your partners are the ones that get it already aligned or are pivoting to a way that like, okay, so, you know, life can also be a little bit stiller, a bit calmer, a bit more reflective, introspective, and just creative at its core, because, you know, like that's the cradle as the source of, you know, all of us, our origin story. Like, it doesn't actually get bigger than that.
And if you were to now juxtapose that with what Nirox is all about, if you were to, you know, share to the audience out there, to the ones that have always been hearing about Nirox, but they don't actually know what is this Nirox Sculpture Park and how does that relate to the Nirox Arts Foundation, that is there in simple language. What is this Nirox Sculpture Park? How does it interface with the bodies that are governing it? And why does it matter?
Yeah, well, I mean, that's a wonderful question because, at its core, it's about arts and human expression, but also within nature. So it's kind of a pick your own adventure sort of scenario where it gives you all of these, it highlights these beautiful ingredients, both of the natural and the man-made world, and it allows people to sort of feel that art and explore within that. So, even where Nirox would have started out with this idea of the arts, which can be a bit grandiose and all of that thing, but like it's always kind of guided its own way from that point. So it didn't really matter what the director's initial objectives were. Like, not anything that's happened in that valley couldn't really have been imagined when it was set out, because that's where all kinds of other collaborators and perspectives and organic growth between people, and I guess the nature of creativity and the human spirit of always wanting to push forward. And then if you're doing it within the space that is so natural and wholesome, and it's just looked after, I think it just opens things up for people. And you've seen it, we've had musicians and artists from all over the world and from here in Joburg, and it's just to give them the space is actually what it's about, because from there that's where the magic comes.
And the audience, and I mean, for the past 2 decades of the existence of the space, the audience growth has been phenomenal. Similar to, and again, in a nutshell, if you were to characterize a Nirox audience, what makes an Nirox audience? And I guess that audience have been an integral part of the growth of the space. Therefore, you can't separate the space and its audience. They should have been somewhere where the match, they collided and makes up this big, fire of magic.
Definitely, I think that. It's, as we were saying, all of it's collaborative. What the space holds, the artists produce, and how the audience engage. It's a real synergy. And I think when it comes to Nirox audiences, I think they have a sense of wonder and exploration about them. Because when you're in that space, you allow yourself to be moved by the things around you. And often, if it's not a big concert and it's just nature, or it's an artwork that somebody made 10 years ago that's now under a tree that you happen to find, like, that connection point exists. And I think for people to trust us in the live music section, again, we're just the ones making the stage. It's a privilege to be able to curate the different programs, but because of the the array of amazing talent that we have here in South Africa, to be able to give these artists a stage and know that they will be seen by an appreciative audience, it's pure synergy.
Yeah. And how does that interface with the holistic offerings, beyond the arts, beyond the music? I know it took some time to start creating, permanent food facilities, expansion of the artist residency and the like. If you were to paint a catalogue of Nirox Sculpture Park offerings, what will that constitute?
Probably a longer podcast than this one because there's so many, and so many of them have different overlaps and reaches outside of where we are. But I think maybe some of the the easiest ones to kind of explain is just, within the expansion of that particular part of the valley, because the valley itself has expanded outside of Nirox.
Yeah.
There are these incredible other venues and activities that other places, have also begun to offer over the course of the last 10, 15 years. But from our side, the things that have really expanded and made an impact are things that have been, I guess, a bit more natural. For example, the agri gardens that we started across the road. That was one person's idea.
Yeah.
Then with a little bit of support, and then with a few of the right people there, now you have people from the local community who work in agri gardens, but then they also see and learn how to do this. So now they take those skills and that ability, and they then transfer it back home, and then they start to grow and share. And then we partner with some NGOs who now come in we have a Friday buyback market at the local shop, where every producer is guaranteed to sell their products. So if you come there and people arrive with bucky loads, wheelbarrow loads, carrying their goods, that stuff's purchased, and suddenly there's this new microeconomy that has now flourished and begun and exists without anybody else. You could take one person out of that ecosystem, but that ecosystem will still hold. And I think that's a really beautiful kind of legacy for what's gone on there, because it's bigger than any one person, right?
Yeah, absolutely. And I guess that also creates an incredible value chain. Now the food fresh from the garden gets to be utilized in the curation of the food experience, for the everyday Nirox restaurant offerings, come concert days, that also gets to, the hands of the traders that are there, and back to, the whole narration of the origin, our food, that we're eating, the music, the way it's curated, symbolizes this origin, and almost the nature and the space calming you down, to appreciate the origin. And I guess that's a nice way to dovetail into our next segment, which is about democratizing the art and creating accessibility. And you touched a little bit on it. The concept of a sculpture park is relatively in South African spaces, in the cities. It's not a grown, known phenomenon. It needs special people. I always say not normal people, because if we were all normal, the world would be so boring. So you need some abnormal people to cater for these mass normal people and get them to appreciate. Having to operate a sculpture park, and by nature, and because of the spatial and geo settings in the country and in other spaces where people live, very far from these types of facilities. Therefore, you don't have an organic interface with spaces like that. There's a lot of education that needs to happen. You don't just take everything that you see that excites you there when you are visiting and put it in your pocket. You don't just weigh that everywhere. The caring of this space becomes your own responsibility. How difficult or easy has been, to deepen and entrench the whole notion of a sculpture park, and in a World Heritage Site which belongs to the people, and in a very impoverished community that you find in that particular space?
So I think when it comes to the world of arts and creativity, of course, access to certain things is important, but there also aren't really any boundaries either in certain ways. With people being exposed to a place like the park, it's very often inspiring. If, obviously that place is a labor of love because of somebody's dedication to art and wanting to make a space for it, but it doesn't become a gatekeeper of it.
Absolutely.
So, we've had so many different artists that have, from the very well known and well established to sort of emerging artists that have come through, that have taken up, under the tutelage of other artists. We've had even one of the Nirox staff themselves has become an artist in his own right, and he's exhibited in the shows because he's felt that same sort of resonance with this creativity, and then started to learn from these other artists while he was there. So he's now got his own portfolio of work. He's sold works. Like, it's an amazing tale. And again, just I guess it shows that, if you can expose people to those realms and to show people what is possible, there's no limitations. Absolutely. Right?
Yeah.
I mean, there's an artist that's showcased in Nirox who's, he's been around the world as well. He arrived, in South Africa as a refugee in a box as a stowaway, and he's now, lauded across the world. Because of that creativity and that drive, and the fact that his work resonates with people. So I think to make the spaces and to keep them going is the real labor of love, and to trust in the fact that the result is beyond anyone's real grasp, but that it does move people even when you don't know it, even when it's not tangible to you, it could still be tangible to them. One thing about the sculpture park in the Highveld, there is the Credo Mutwa sculptures as well. So maybe that's the original one up here in the Highveld.
It has always been there. But the space is beyond just the traditional art. The space incorporates contemporary art, and art is also expressed through music that gets offered there, curated music. So is it a deliberate direction from the side? I have not seen, in the 2 decades of Nirox, a Goomba gig at Nirox. But just curated, seamless phenomenon, easy chill space. Is that deliberate? But does that the space you are in and the vision as espoused earlier always guides you in terms of what type of collaboration, what type of features do you put up in the space?
I think it definitely does. The guidelines are there, but they are guidelines. They're not strict rules. There's always going to be, artists pushing certain boundaries, and if it's musical or contemporary and visual, which is amazing because there's at Nirox, it's not set in stone in any way, but obviously to respect the land on which it is, the neighbors, the nature, all of that. And again, then those natural expansions, like you would have seen the Kromdraai Impact Hub, that new artist residency with the shared venue, it's come about more out of like a necessity for it. Because when Nirox, doesn't kind of want branding in its park because it's, everything's very specific and curated and looked after in that fashion. And there's only certain kinds of music, and it wraps at sunset. There's space for those things, but there's also space for the other side of that. Human creativity doesn't end there. So Nirox, I think, fulfills that particular space in its own style and handwriting, but it's not to say that it's the only thing or the correct things. So having done some of the shows there at the hub, with some of the Afro House DJs, with the 340mm reunion. The Duma Collective, those kinds of things, it's really quite incredible to expand the range within our valley to offer something that is a bit different.
And I guess that has been the actual impact of the original space. I call it a hub and a spoke model. You have the Nirox Sculpture Park, serving as the hub, and then through thematic, curation and expansion. So you now have the residency hub that is just across. You have the garden across, and many other spaces are now leveraging out of this facility. You now have tours. You have phenomenal accommodation
Yeah.
that it's also curated, that also, imbues the story that is out there. And will you say this is a classical example of how to build, hub and spokes facilities, across our various cities, utilize, what is known, what supports the initial vision, to then create the pockets that plugs back, into the sites. How you have a Soweto that now supports all the other adjacent township. You have the Tshwane, and how that will you say that becomes a model that could easily be replicated? And is that an international phenomenon out of your experience, in international markets?
I think so. The thing is, again, because it was never set out that this is the blueprint and that's how we're going to go for it.
Yeah.
It's more been sort of empirical learning as we've gone ahead.
Yeah.
But it does help to have Nirox as the anchor, as a space that is always just kind of held its own in terms of okay, these are the tenets that we subscribe to in terms of aesthetics, in terms of natural environment, in terms of creativity as currency. And from there, these new strands develop without, being able to having forecast them, like the Giants of Africa, joined via, the Nirox network, and now they've built that netball and basketball court, which is now the local
adjacent
community center.
Yeah.
The Columba Leadership School, which also was, introduced via Nirox, but it's now, it's its own framework. It just happens to fall within the space.
Yeah.
So I do I think from, just from what we've seen in terms of the development, I do think that works. If there is something that can sort of anchor as a certain space or idea, and then build from that, because you don't know where it's going to go from there.
You are very modest, Lloyd, especially around the community development work and partnerships that have been able to be unlocked there. The audience here, we have leaders, we have funders that watches and tune into our session. So speak to them and share the work that is being done there. The basketball courts and the netball courts there that are adjacent to the school around there, it's not just a small, thing. Lloyd, the garden, the food garden that is out there, the expanded hub artist residency where artists are able to come in, take a sabbatical, and come in, in a space where it's quiet, do their work. The interface between the park and working for fire and the water challenges, issues that are there. You guys have been in the forefront, driving community partnerships to get that working. So there has been phenomenal work. I don't want it to only be in Baba's and Lloyd and Benji's head. Let punt it out there and expand more on the work that you're doing.
So, thank you for bringing that to the fore. I do appreciate it, Baba. I think, from our side, because, we appreciate that we don't live in some sort of isolation, The valley is everybody in that valley's kind of responsibility. It's everybody there's home. So, there is the underserved community that is, just down the road from us. And, it's always been through the course of the years, very important that, it's as integrated as possible. So same with the hub residencies. It's an artist residency predominantly, but it's bifocal in its approach in that, it has to also have an outreach arm. So there's already now a few programs that exist, and they often, help and deal with younger members of the community, so young boys or young girls, that they're able to be brought into these, artistic or creative developmental programs. So they suddenly have, mentors or a way to learn from somebody else. So some artists come and they plug into those same programs, and, the kids get to come back and be exposed to, a different kind of world. And some artists come with different skill sets, and then they introduce new programs to that. one of the evolutions out of that space that I've really appreciated is that all the between the Farmhouse 58 accommodation and Nirox and its concerts and the different restaurants and things in that space, and even the community center, we were able to create a small business for gentlemen within the local community who got also sort of upskilled and taught by different carpenters and stuff like that, so that now any kind of furniture that's required or gets made in-house within this new space, and now that space has a catalog and a website, and they've started taking orders from other places. So people come to Nirox and say, I'd love this couch, or can I have a bar counter like that in this size? And, it goes to the workshop, and the guys, they run their business. Say, hey, guys, can we get this? They're like, yeah, but in 2 weeks, we're busy with something else right now. So, to see that kind of, again, very organic and very much without like one person just driving it. It's just how things have come to be. I mean, Dimple, our head barista, was at the Matla school growing up. That was his education, and now he runs his own portfolio within the ecosystem. So it is a synergy. It is a synergy, and it's an important synergy. So
absolutely,
one thing that we are aiming for is there's been a lot of planning around the potential of making a hospitality school in the area, because of so many places within the Cradle that are popping up, to have a space that can also uplift and educate, so that when the young learners are coming out of school, they then step into another space where you can, because the realms of hospitality, as you know, also so wide. So there's opportunity for that as well, and I guess. We'll see how that develops.
We'll speak about that, global and regional collaborations, opportunities for plug and play. But you can tell it is not just an art residency. It is not just about concert and beautiful people and quality music and food. It's about community upliftment. It's about integrating the community that is out there into this whole ecosystem. But it's also about skills development and ensuring that there is that direct community beneficiation, upskill skills, and also look at how the hospitality and the collaboration could go beyond the borders of the sculpture park. Let's have a look at what is this Nirox Sculpture Park, what it contains in this segment as we take a short break.
What a spectacular day. Thank you all for coming out.
Sugar plum, patatalami. I know it's been tough for love, baby, but please remain calm. If there is one thing you should never doubt, is that look on oh, baganingi, angikhuluma ngolwimi ungenza ngifile ngathi I've seen exigi kodwa now I say no vow before I lie. I just wanna show you before I die just how much I love you and how much I care. There's no one above you out there. Just know that I love you and know that I care. There's no one above you out there. Sure, we can try to give it some time, but think about
Welcome back to Gauteng Life, the platform where we propagate, converse, and share everything about the visitor economy in the Golden Province of Gauteng. We are continuing with our guest, Lloyd Anthony Smith, the impresario at Nirox Sculpture Park, but one of the curators, the brains behind the phenomenal concerts that you see out there, the growth in the audience and the growth in the partnerships and community engagements that happen. Earlier on, before the short break, Lloyd, we were talking about, collaboration. So how the facility has been able to forge, not just local, but regional and global collaborations. I've seen a lot of parks from the continent, especially from the likes of Ghana, through either their own artists collaborating with the sculpture park. What are some of those that stands out, throughout your involvement and the involvement or the 2 decades of the existence of the park?
I think it varies because when it comes to individual artists and their sort of journeys, Nirox helps to be a vehicle sometimes to connect, and the other way around. So either via other sculpture parks, institutions, galleries, and embassies, actually, who will reach out and be like, cool, this is the artist, this is what they do, we'd like to make an introduction. Next thing you know, you have somebody there for 3 weeks from India making something amazing and connecting with another artist from another part of the continent. And it's amazing on that front as individual artists. Nirox, of course, connects with other sculpture parks. I know they've done big sculpture exhibition collaborations with Yorkshire Sculpture Park, Vanos Kunst in Sweden, another park in South America. But I think one of my most sort of standout collaborations on the international front is with the Ukrainian Institute, where alongside Democracy Works Foundation, Ukrainian Institute and Nirox, we hosted musicians and visual artists from the Ukraine in the hub residency with South African artists, musicians, and poets. We hosted them for a chance to collaborate, connect, to just hear everybody's sort of stories and life perspectives. It's quite wild, actually. And then to meet in a place of musical collaboration is something amazing. Then, integrating with some of the young girls who are singers in the local community into like a performative concert. The Free the Children concert, also just highlighting the plight of abducted children in the Ukraine-Russia war. Just to see the impact that they can have in terms of that story and that story being told, hosting members of civil society, creating these documentaries, these workshops, this concert. So, just sort of, again, using art as the vehicle to expand dialogues and human consciousness. It's a big power.
Absolutely. Any specific collaborations locally, universities, institutions around, and or future work, that is in the pipeline, especially around a specific call. I know the team there is quite in tune and very passionate about climate change issues. For example, the polluted water, like I was saying, working with fire, the whole range about propagating food security, through the arts and its phenomenon voice, and these concerts and these activities are also exposing, different traders, how to present the food, how to preserve it, and how to ensure longevity, and the garden, on the other side, says to reinforce this message. So a whole range of possible collaboration pipeline. I can see the Provincial Department of Environment, playing a crucial role in leveraging the connections and assets and the storyline that Nirox have been able to build. Your take on that?
Yeah, I think you touched on a very pertinent point with regards to the water, because that Cradle of Humankind, it's got hundreds of kilometers of underground water beds there, some of the best natural water on the planet, and obviously faced an ecological challenge which started a couple of years ago with some illegal dumping from mines and stuff like that, and pollutants in the water. And Nirox kind of became again that same anchor in a lot of ways, where it provided the facilities for other landowners and business owners that are impacted to meet, and the different departments to kind of try to figure out a way together, as opposed to just sort of a blame game and then having the same problem, saying, well, let's rather connect and see how we can drive this forward. From there, the University of Pretoria with Professor Johan Tom, they've also they've just completed the second out of 3 years of what they call the Water Stories.
Yes.
So it's a fine arts students-led project where the students actually go and they see these different sites, they understand the metrics at play, they document it, they have artistic and creative responses to it, to again highlight the issues and bring it to the fore, so that the conversations can be had in terms of how can we actually repair and fix things that require repairing and fixing.
Yes,
so in terms of the natural world, it's so important, because that's what that space stands for more than anything. We're all just visitors on that land.
Absolutely. And the power and influence of the creative arts, the creator space, you sing, you develop poems about a specific cause, about a specific problem, and that just mobilizes and rallies other stakeholders behind it. Are we going to be seeing in the near future, a global concert on water?
I actually can't believe you just said that. I don't know if you've got some insider tracking there, Baba, but literally on the 18th of April, they're doing a concert for water, and that's the title, Concert for Water. So I don't know, you plucked that one out of mid-air.
You just got it live, direct on Gauteng Life. It was supposed to be a scoop from Lloyd, but we have shared it, and you've heard it out loud and direct. Lloyd, let's jump into how all this now influence and drives tourism and the visitor economy. We've dealt with, and for you to have this consistent, whether monthly or bi-monthly activities, local audiences becomes important, because those are your staple food. Those are your bread and butter issues. But World Heritage Sites, like I've said, belong to the people of the world. South Africans were just preserving it and managing it on behalf of the people of the world. For me, that's a phenomenal space to be in, to be able to use that to invite the world to Gauteng, South Africa, and Africa. All these offerings, in your view, and out of your own experience, how have they been able to, one, enhance Destination Gauteng as this preferred destination for lifestyle, arts, music, and entertainment? How have they been able to leverage the West Rand, your home region and your home space, and create that differentiation between fast-paced urban city vibes in Johannesburg to a laid-back ecological experience in the West Rand, the benefit for tourism from such a facility, and what could be cooked moving forward?
The thing is, it's just such a unique space, apart from being the cradle, which is already, magnificent in its story. The fact that you can, breach the outskirts of Pretoria, Joburg, Centurion, and the sort of speed of that those places move in, and then you're in just countryside. Suddenly you're on a long drive. I mean, that drive between the Lanceria Road to Nirox, it's my favorite road.
What a drive!
It's the best.
It's the best.
And if you do, I mean, all the cyclists know as well, because they're there every weekend. You've got 6,000-7,000 cyclists every weekend, going up and down there. But in the week, I mean, I've driven that road countless times, and so many times in the week, you won't even see another car.
And every day just feels different. Every day,
so
you can't get used to it.
And like you'll drive and you might see a mongoose or a warthog, and like that's the only thing you see until you hit Lanceria, basically. And I think, you know, for people to just have that change from the busyness, you know, of modern living, because it can be, you know, fast and it can be demanding. And I think to be able to just unplug from there and plug into nature and into creativity, you know, we're basically just the platform and the stage. You know, it's incredible, the space, but Nirox doesn't make the art, or I don't make the music, you know, like we're able to say, here's the space, here's the stage, here's the platform. And, you know, to have a discerning audience, an audience that, you know, appreciates the countryside excursion and appreciates the artists on exhibit, you know, it's a wonderful combination. And, you know, it's something that we've obviously looked after the best that we can, because we're just sort of custodians of that.
So are we going to see in near future or any collaborations with the tourism body? I know there is the Morame Tourism Association. Shout out to Morame, doing fantastic work in the region. Around, you know, I know there are curated tours there. There is a link between, you know, the accommodation space across the road to, you know, the lifestyle zone and the eateries, you know, on the park, and, you know, a walk. But I don't know if I say I want to buy a package. If there's to be a package, right, and it includes in this month of love, lovers walks in the park, and maybe recommitment to love and humanity, you know, that include spending a night or two, you know, in the accommodation up there. That might include peeping into artistic work by the arts residency somewhere there. If Black Coffee Unati is doing his new album, you know, in the arts residency there in Nirox, and you have the money to pay and you are able to pay and buy this package, and you can peep into that making of that album. Is it something to consider, or is just Baba being Baba and just breaking all the rules out there?
No, I think that's probably the next step, right? Because we, within the valley, everybody kind of collaborates with everybody else. But to sort of, you know, make a cement kind of package that you're like, okay, this is what you get. Just arrive here, and Chuku Tours is going to take you from here to the spa at 58, to lunch at, and then there's fire, to a hot air balloon ride, to Sterkfontein Caves, or exactly. I mean, like, I think the thing is that space is also just, you know, developed is a strong word in terms of like how you think of develop in a more urban area, but it has developed in terms of, as you mentioned, the eateries and things like that. Like, there's just so many more things for guests of the Cradle to do. So when you go out there, you know, it doesn't mean that every weekend you've got to go to Nirox. Absolutely. Like, there's so many other places that are doing amazing events, that do have amazing restaurants, and like, I think it's just a space to explore, you know, not just for people from Gauteng and that live in the province, but we've seen statistically as well how many people are coming from Durban and Cape Town for the concert weekends, if they are really curious or keen on that particular program or one or two of the artists, or also just a change of scenery. You know, they'll fly into Lanseria, stay in the cradle, and soak up all of its wonders, and then cruise back. Even internationally, we've started getting some ticket buyers. So I don't know if
I
that's
guess
just coincidental.
You can pick up from the tickets buying, which credit card from which country was used to be able to do that. And will you say, the consistency and almost the permanency in how these concerts are scheduled, contributed to the rising in the numbers in Gauteng, the domestic trips and the actual spend that we are seeing, for 48 billion rand generated out of the visitor economy in the province, and lifestyle, creative economy-driven events have been at the forefront. And I guess Nirox played its part.
Yeah, and again, without a bigger blueprint than just, it's pursuit of the arts. And I think even though it really is amazing to have, visitors from other provinces and other countries, it truly is, but it's also so nice to know that, that for the people of Gauteng, the people that live here, and, they're the ones that are frequenting these concerts. Absolutely. They know if there's Mother's Day coming up, if there's Father's Day coming up, they know where they can come to celebrate those occasions. The same with Valentine's Day this weekend, the spring jazz. It's I think that the consistency in the programming has helped that, but I guess it's also people being trusting as well to a degree, where they're like, okay, we know that we're gonna have all the opportunity to enjoy ourselves today.
Let's talk about the Concert of Love, and happening in the month of love, but also just fresh from the holidays. It's now getting into the thick of things, pushing ahead, and the 5-hour, 6-hour experience at Nirox might not be enough, therefore it opens up avenues, for staying another day, for extended experience, for a cheese and wine at the farmhouse, for stars gazing, in Maropeng Visitor Center, at the boutique hotel there. But the hook will have been the Concert of Love, without really involving specific big name artists. These platforms and many other concerts are always sold out. What is the trick, Lloyd? If you were to share, we use this platform to share peer review. What has been the trick? I know this one, the Concert of Love featuring Mandisa, the lineup constitute the traditional Nirox way of doing things, putting in a leading artist, upcoming artist, but giving them a space that there is no separation. They are all arts in music, they are all artists in music, and they are all artists in love.
Yeah, I think the idea of soul for this particular Valentine's, because we always have a different sort of thematic that provides the thread through our programming, and music that is of a soulful kind of feel, and I think you've picked up on it perfectly, Baba, in terms of like, it's not just here's the superstars, here's the big name artists. Like for us, we love to have a combination of established and emerging, sometimes even completely hidden or forgotten artists.
Absolutely.
And I think that's where it's such a special engagement with the audiences, because if our commitment to just production quality in terms of trying to just make everything as nice as possible,
seamless as possible,
but after that it's out of your hands, right?
Yeah.
And I think then when the musicians take to that stage and and the kind of feel you get between the audience and the musicians. I mean, it's very, very tangible, but it's not something that you can flick a switch on and off. It's kind of got to all just meet in one kind of magical realm for that moment. So I think that it's nice that we get to seen as like a bit of an anchor for the Valentines, but I think to also my point earlier of working in a little bit of isolation is that some guests will have taken you up on all of those suggestions, and they would have been booked to stay at Maropeng or at Cradle Boutique or at Farmhouse 58, even though the concert will be the thing that got them initiated into it, and then now they're like, okay, cool, but I'm doing dinner here, and I'm doing this walk here, and I'm doing this accommodation there. So it's already, again, happening organically, and I think to maybe find a way to package that as something going forward is a strong idea.
Absolutely. You have touched on it, Lloyd, as we walk towards closing and wrapping up the segment. The future outlook. You've explained the vision, but so in the next 2 decades, but also what does the pipeline look like this year in terms of scheduling and curation and programming of the space? But I guess not even the ever blue skies of Gauteng can be the limit for you as you look into the next 2 decades.
I'm very excited to also expand into other areas in terms of maybe by way of an example. Nirox was invited what is now 2 Decembers ago to host a concert at Kirstenbosch Gardens.
Okay.
And I mean, Kirstenbosch is, an amazing botanical garden in South Africa.
Yeah, but it's still playing in the B division compared to the A division in Nirox.
Do you think so?
Yeah.
I don't know. They're very different spaces. Nirox is that high curation of sculpture, and whereas Kirstenbosch is just this massive expanse of nature.
It's in the realm of the botanical gardens there in Joburg Botanical Gardens. Therefore, we must put everything in its space and its category. Yeah, but expand more.
I mean, the thing is, when it comes to music and what's possible, I mean, I've always sort of had an idea to maybe at some stage have some kind of a traveling international jazz program or jazz festival. If you look at the world of jazz and the concerts and stuff that are out there, and then you look at the artists that we have here and the ensembles we have here, it's just on another level. It is amazing. And from the Nirox handwriting, the idea of collaborating with local artists if you go somewhere else, or other artists, kind of intertwining their skills, then you're making something that hasn't existed before.
Absolutely.
And there's a magic that exists in that. So we'll see how all of that plays out. In the meantime, we have this current program to look out for, which is the Concert for Water, as you announced. Baba. Mother's Day, we've always done it with the Johannesburg Philharmonic Orchestra. Last year was also in collaboration with the Italian Embassy, and they sent a soprano here from Italy. Instead, Ati performed that with the year before. We had Lyra on doing a comeback with a few songs with that. And that was not a dry eye in the park. Then Father's Day, it's going to be, I think this year, more just of the elder statesmen. So Vusi Maklasela and the likes. Spring Jazz, again, one of my favorites of the year. And then one of our newer properties in Good Neighbors. Which is curated and run by my good friend and esteemed colleague, Mr. Tsawanda Gwasera. This last year was its second edition and absolute powerhouse of an event. Tsawanda's extended it beyond the realms of just, music and poetry and into, design, photography, fashion, even food. I mean, he had Chef Coco there from the Epicure, all kinds of sort of different food traders, more from the continent. And it's a beautiful, beautiful project. And I'm looking forward to seeing where we're going to go this year. Of course, Amadodana was there last year as well. And another just magic moments in that amphitheater.
Any opportunities for especially the art residency? We are initiating a project we call the Gauteng Creators Passport. And what is the Gauteng Creators Passport is actually a global passport that every creator we believe should have.
Yeah.
And when they get into the province, there is certain spaces where they can get their stamps. If you visit the art residency in Nirox, you stay over there. If you stay for more than 3 days or 5 days, you actually get dual stamps. You go to various art spaces, music studios, film studios, and in the whole art ecosystem. This allows you for fast tracking, at the airport, specialized fast tracking route. This allows you to have access to spaces where you can work, like the residency. But ultimately, when you look at this Creators Passport, it also becomes your motivation if you were to ask for a work permit, to enable you to be able to work in the specific space, because you are not just coming here on a tourist visa and do work and not contribute towards economic activity in the province and in the country. And so that's one of the things that we want to engage yourselves as experts in it, in how to roll it out. But in terms of beyond concerts, how does the art residency, how do people book? What are the normal durations? What are the do's and don'ts and the TNCs that characterize wanting to open the space? Here's Baba promoting this Creators Passport, and one of the spaces where you can get good stamps for your Creators Passport is Nirox.
Yeah, and a warm welcome. So I think between the Nirox residency and the Kromdraai Impact Hub residency, those fall perfectly into that kind of a sphere. So Nirox has its own channels to reach out to for their residency, and then the Kromdraai Impact Hub, its own channels. And the Impact Hub, I'd say, is a bit more flexible and modular as well, in terms of what it's able to accommodate, how many people it can accommodate, the turnaround time, stuff like that. So I think in terms of that as an idea and a way to connect people and to embolden them into come to a different place, come somewhere that you haven't been before, and you'll be looked after. These are the spots, these are the people, and then everybody's connected. I think it's a great idea.
Lloyd, as we close down, we are running a program, and it's actually a campaign. It's focusing on what we call the first-timers into Gauteng. These are people in the province that are coming in. They've just started their job on the 1st of February. They are brand new in the province. They don't even know how to come by a taxi to go to town. What becomes Lloyd as a born and bred Gautenger, from the West Rand? What is Lloyd's guide to the first-timers into Gauteng? They could be coming in here now, studying at the universities. We have over 2.5 million students in our universities. Another audience that curated events actually don't look at. 2.5 million students in one small province like Gauteng. It's huge. And students comes, they stay longer. After they finish their studies, they look for work opportunities. So an investment into that audience become a long-term ripple effect and a harvest, into the future. But what is Lloyd's guide, pocket guide to the first-timers in Gauteng?
So I think, there's so many different styles and genres and pockets of art and culture to explore out here. I think like a Wednesday night Sawubona jam in Soweto is always a powerful and rhythmic fiesta. Thursday nights, the new hues, which I've got to go to. I couldn't make it last week for Bokani Dyer's set, but the Huma Sekela Foundation's new music space. Also the first Thursdays, to go and see the different galleries and stuff like that. If you're on Keys Art Mile, or if you're doing sort of the sort of Parkhurst, Parktown North kind of space, I'd say also then an Untitled Basement. Always worth a visit, downstairs for the live music, upstairs for the selector stuff, and then probably Nirox on a Sunday for for a different kind of take on things.
In your working at Nirox and generally in the creative space, is there one funniest moment or funniest request you have ever had, working at Nirox, especially during concert days?
There's been a couple of outlandish requests. I'm just trying to think what might have been the funniest one. Not at Nirox, Baba, but probably the most bizarre situation that I've been in was actually back in my days in the Seychelles, where I had to drop off 2 sumo wrestlers at the airport after a gig that they just performed at the night before, and all of the buckies were out of commission, so I had to drive them to the airport in a small Daihatsu Charade, and they were holding their luggage out the window.
Wow.
So I won't forget that. That in a hurry. But I've come a long way since that particular set of islands.
I guess the central message is that always design things, always be future ready. Therefore, next time when you were hosting, you got to make sure that the cars, fits and they are able to adjust to any type of guest. Lloyd, it has been really a great pleasure and a privilege, which we are not taking for granted, to have you in our studios and sharing and propagating with us on Gauteng Life. Thank you very much.
Amazing, Baba. Thank you so much for having me, and thanks for all the work that you guys also do within the province, within the space, and I know it reaches beyond the borders of Gauteng, and thank you for having me here in the studio.
Thank you, Lloyd. It has been another phenomenal episode of Gauteng Life, a platform where we shape, share and propagate the province identity, how it interfaces with the creative economy. And don't forget to follow us, subscribe. Please click that subscribe. Tell your friends, tell your family about this channel. Give us feedback. We are at I Love Gauteng on Facebook. We are at Visit Gauteng and TikTok and Instagram. We are at Gauteng Tourism Authority on LinkedIn and also on X. Download the Visit Gauteng mobile app, which we found on Google Play and on iStore. This is the platform where, as a business, as an entrepreneur, as a creator, you can load your offerings, your product, absolutely for free. Allow us to share your work, your business, your offering with the rest of the world. You might be wanting to follow Lloyd in his career and become a curator. You might be selling art. You might be offering musical equipment. Download the Visit Gauteng mobile app, create your own profile, and allow us to share your work with the rest of the world. Until the next episode, continue shining. Pula.